Okay. So, hello, welcome everyone. Today we are having our seventh webinar of our series of Scientia Science Writing Internship Cohort 4. And today, for our seventh webinar, we have invited Ms. Fizza Hameed Khan. And today's topic would be building climate literacy and writing for awareness and action, especially for curated for writers. Initially, I would like to introduce Ms. Fizza Hameed. She is an international climate advocate and researcher from Pakistan and with a background in international relations. And she is also a senior director at Climate Forward Pakistan, a very well-known non-governmental organization which is involved in climate change action within Pakistan. Additionally, Fizza is a renowned youth climate ambassador. She has attended COP28, 29. She's always all over there, and she likes to work on the front line of climate impact, interregional collaboration with other South Asian countries. Additionally, Fizza has also been involved in climate negotiation as a part of finance because, as we know, climate has to be addressed through all means. And also, she also works in climate justice. So everything has to be very, what we could say, interdisciplinary when we are talking about climate. Additionally, Fizza has also been named by Climate Hero by United Nations Pakistan. And so today we will be discussing and learning a lot about climate. And thank you, Fizza. Thank you for joining. Thank you for taking your time. And we have always been collaborating with Climate Forward Pakistan in one way or another. So over to you. Thank you, Fizza.
Thank you first. Thank you for the introduction. And I'm really glad I'm really, I'd say grateful to Scientia magazine for this opportunity, because I think when it comes to climate change, it's not just a technical issue. It's not just an issue which we need to discuss on government level. It's something that we need to sit at our homes with our parents, with our friends, with our siblings, and discuss this. So I think this is an important opportunity for all the people that are over here and that are pursuing their, I'd say, pursuing their passion in writing. So it's really important whether you become a journalist, whether you become a writer for, let's suppose, an op-ed or anything, you go for anything in all of these fields. It's really important to understand let me admit some people. Am I allowed to admit people?
Let me do that. Just you may carry on. I'm here to
Sure. Okay. So sorry for that. Right. So as I mentioned, it's an important subject. It's something that I started my journey with initially. For me, climate change seemed as a subject which was, boring. It was something that was too technical. It was, क्या पढ़ा जाए, बस ग्लोबल वार्मिंग है, कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड जो है वो हम इमिट कर रहे हैं, गाड़ियों से निकल रहा है, ट्रक से निकल रहा है, और industries and everything, and it's accumulating in our environment, and we have climate change. But that was not it. It has such a large scale impact कि उसको हम ignore नहीं कर सकते. And how I came into this was through media, basically. So during my bachelor's, I was doing a subject on media and politics. And I realized that I can create this junction between media, वो किसी भी form का media हो, it doesn't matter, वो आपका mainstream media है, वो news channels हैं, वो आपका social media, whichever form it is, that I can create this junction between media and climate awareness. So, and then slowly and gradually I started exploring, and there was quite a bit of literature, but unfortunately Pakistan में उस चीज़ पे इतना नहीं लिखा जा रहा. And so hence this was what I proposed to Fawz as well. Okay, this is something I want to talk about with our fellows over here. So moving on to the presentation, understanding climate change, it's not just the temperature rising, global temperature rising above 1.5 or up to 2 degrees Celsius, and ये सिर्फ treaties नहीं है कि parties जो है वो बैठ के treaties लिख रही हैं, they are agreeing on to things. This is a micro level action that is resulting in a problem which is global in its implications. तो हम लोग यहाँ पे micro level पे अगर if I as an individual am to test my carbon emissions, तो मुझे पता लगेगा कि मैं जो गाड़ी यूज कर रही हूँ या if I am utilizing my laptop या मैंने AC लगाया हुआ है या कुछ भी, the amount, even our electricity, we use fossil fuel generated thermal electricity, हम लोग thermal energy पाकिस्तान में utilize करते हैं. So every single light that we have switched on, हमारा phone charge हो रहा है, everything is in turn contributing to climate change. So understanding that कि ये क्या चीज है, it's not this climate change parties बैठ गए and they have written a treaty. It's not that. It's every small scale act that is resulting in a global scale implication. United Nations Environment Program ने climate change synthesis report लिखा in which they emphasized कि there will be dire consequences अगर हम 1.5 डिग्री सेल्सियस का थ्रेशोल्ड जो है वो क्रॉस करते हैं. एंड अभी जो हमारा एक आप कहें एक ट्रैजेक्टरी है, that is actually moving towards that. And the moment we surpass that, we are already seeing implications. Abhi recently aapne dekha ki Salabi Rela in Sawat, also in Punjab, the rains that are happening every single day over here. Ab kal raat ko itni, I would say, a heavy downpour that happened here in Rawalpindi, iski wajah se aapke paas urban flooding ki issues aate hain, bahut sare different issues aate hain. So it all ties into each other. Urban planning and climate change, heat waves and all of that, it ties into each other. So it's best for us to understand this subject. Similarly, I'll congratulate all of you because किसी चीज में हम लोग first हो गए हैं. We are the first most vulnerable nation according to the German Watch 2025 Climate Risk Index. तो किसी चीज में तो अव्वल नंबर पे आ गए हैं, but it's also very important for us to understand कि ये कितना significant matter है. We are not contributors to global emissions. We are not causing climate change. हमारा बहुत minimal contribution है इसमें. But the impacts are literally crossing continents and reaching us. ये आप ये सोचें कि the West has industrialized and then the implications are now being faced by the southerns, जो आप कहें जो global South states हैं, they are now facing the consequences of it.
Fizza, one thing. I guess have you switched on your slide or because we are only able to visible slide number 1. Just for yes. Okay. Now we are on the slide.
I won't open it in slideshow because I thought it was visible.
Yes, definitely. And additionally, we are going good, but just to give you a go ahead, one of our participants is for Egypt, so we could go on. So
Sure.
Go on via English, but still we are quite into it.
Perfect. I will stick to English, but I thought maybe it would be better understood by all of the participants. I wasn't aware, so thank you so much for that first. All right, so moving forward, so this was all about the current situation that we're facing when it comes to climate change. Then we talk about climate literacy, as in we understand the term literacy in itself, which means the ability to write, if someone can sign their name on a piece of paper, then that person is literate. But obviously, there are levels to it. There are different understandings and different interpretations of the word literacy. But let's put it into context of climate change. So climate literacy is the ability to understand the impacts of climate change. So defined by National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, it's a US federal agency, and it defines climate literacy as the profound comprehension of one's impact as a person, as a human, our impact on climate, and the reciprocal influence of climate on individuals and society. So this definition basically explains a two-way street. It's not a one-way channel that we need to understand that the impacts of climate change on us. It's our impact on the climate, and then the implications that we face because of our impact on the climate. So it's at large, it's a two-way process that we need to understand. So a climate literate person can critically evaluate climate information, communicate effectively, and make informed decisions. For us, I'd say, though it's I don't know how many. Can you tell me, do we only have one person from outside Pakistan, or is this open to a lot of people across the world?
Well, as a part of internship, one participant is from Egypt, and there are few people outside Pakistan, but they are usually Pakistanis most.
Pakistanis. Okay, perfect. All right. So if I'll put it into the context of Pakistan, because I think this is a little bit more easier for us to understand. And I think it's because the entire presentation sort of revolves around our national situation. So I would put this one into Pakistan as well. But yes, throughout the presentation, I would be giving you guys a bit of a glimpse of this on the international level as well. So what happens in Pakistan is that most of our decisions are made within the parliament, within the National Assembly and Senate, and all of those bills and resolutions are passed over there. We don't tend to make much contribution to the decisions that are made. But I think this is high time that us as youth need to understand, or even beyond youth, not just youth, everyone. We need to understand this thing that though the current structure does not allow our point of views, our perspectives to be considered in decision making, but it is high time that we start making ourselves heard. Because when these decisions are made in silos, they tend to have negative implications in the long run, and we cannot afford that. Keeping in mind that you do not only have climate change vulnerability, or you're not only highly susceptible to it, but you also an underdeveloped state, you have a high rate of unemployment, you also have high rate of health issues, and the education, the out of school children, and all of these various issues that we currently face within our nation. What happens is that when there is a cycle of climate catastrophe, or this process where we kind of fall into an event, and then we have to rehabilitate our people, our communities back out of it, it kind of results in more dire consequences, as in the already unemployed people lose their houses, might lose their lives, are more prone to health issues. They obviously have to rehabilitate, they have to try and build a life, so they cannot focus on education, on other things. You then face wash issues. I'll give you an example of Sindh. In Sindh, when the floodings hit, there were pregnant women that were not able to rehabilitate, obviously because of certain social dogmas and these ideas that women, where are these women going to go? There are no rehabilitation centers specifically for women, so it's best for women to stay in those flooded houses under those weak roofs, which can anytime fall on them and kill them. And let's emphasize on the fact that there were a lot of pregnant women in it as well. So those kids were born in floodwaters, most of them. The women faced a lot of health crisis. Similarly, men from those families, not just in Sindh, but across Pakistan, men from those families face unemployment. They become unemployed because obviously when a catastrophe hits, their resource, let's suppose they're farmers, so that resource that they utilize to feed their families is now gone. So basically they become unemployed. And even in cases where the certain jobs are halted, transportation, people are in transportation businesses, their transportation is halted because roads are broken down. So all of these issues they create a larger, a more complex problem for us. So we need to understand, and then keeping in mind this complex issue, we need to now start contributing to the decision making. But how do we do that? We cannot expect, who do I name? But we cannot expect political, candidates to know everything about climate change. So then we come into the picture. We need to first inform them. Similarly, we need to write more and more in less complex manner on different social media channels, on media, talk shows and stuff like that, on bulletin, breaking news and all of that. We need to bring these subjects into light for even those politicians to understand this matter, so that they can then incorporate it into decision making and make decisions accordingly. Similarly, this has also been emphasized in our SDG 13, target 13.3, which emphasizes education, awareness, and capacity building for climate action. In Pakistan, when we talk about the statistics, so a report by UNICEF published in 2021 showed that the research focused on young people, and they were able to conclude that only 27% of respondents were able to understand or were able to explain climate change. That's a very small number. It's a very small number. It's not even quarter. Well, it is quarter. It's a little bit more than a quarter of all of the respondents. So it's a very small number when you put it into a bigger picture. And then again, if you put it into perspective of, is anyone speaking?
No.
All right. So, and when you put it in the picture of what Pakistan is currently facing, so this is a very small number. And in South Asia, in the entire region, Pakistan has the lowest average, which is the regional average. They have the lowest among it. And this kind of brings your focus onto the urgent efforts that are needed to improve climate education. So you can include climate-related information in school curriculums. You can also add this into, let's suppose, your traditional media, the talk shows, as I mentioned, the debates that happen, political debates that happen. Let's start doing those debates on subjects like climate change. Why are we not talking about that? Morning shows in which we bring in people like, I mean, I'm not criticizing her, but just saying, as a nation where our focus is on the topics that we're focusing, we bring people like Dana Need because she mentioned the statement that party ho rahi hai. Like, we bring those people and sensationalize them further because they were viral, and we're going to get more and more views. And then on our social media, we also see people posting again and again about these videos, that this is a girl and she posted this video. What good is it doing to our society? Nothing. But if we write about the important subjects, it then has much more positive impacts on us as a nation. So this is what we need to understand. And I think this is what we need to propagate more and more as well. The importance of climate literacy. So why is it important? Because when you are not literate, you cannot contribute to decision making, as I mentioned before. As an individual, you will not be able to partake in, let's suppose, community engagements or individual actions as an individual. We cannot do actions like I'll give you the example of washing a car. If you are literate and you know the implications of washing a car with 4 buckets of water and how we're depleting our freshwater supply, you would then choose to wash it with 1 bucket of water instead of 4. So this is the understanding that we need to build in ourselves. Similarly, climate literacy is also key to adapting to the environmental crisis. If we are unaware about floods, if we're unaware about the way we can protect ourselves and thwart the threat of climate change, only then can we adapt to it. If we are building resorts and contributing more and more to environmental crisis by building resorts right on waterbeds, let's suppose it's a monsoon season and then a huge rally of flood water comes and the entire building falls. We're like, oh, this was not supposed to happen. And you're creating resorts and hotels right on the place where there's a natural channel for water. You need to understand these things. As a society, we need to be a little bit more aware. Instead of being business oriented, we need to understand what should we do. We see the fact that more and more glaciers are melting. So obviously, water that is melting from those glaciers is going to, come through these natural channels, and it will have destruction if the path of that water, the natural path of that water is, there is some sort of barriers to that path, or there's some sort of constructions on it, so that will be affected by it. So these are some things we need to understand as a community in order to adapt to it. Similarly, Pakistan has made progress in climate literacy. We have seen when media's focus as well as social media's focus, even on TikTok and YouTube, we see people talking more and more about this issue, but still the percentage is very low. And I think we need to work harder, considering that you're the first most vulnerable nation in the entire world. So you need to raise more and more awareness about it. So role of media, and when I say media, I'm talking about general media. So it's print media. It's let's suppose you're writing an editorial, a column in a newspaper, whether it's an article in an online article like an op-ed. If you're writing a research paper, if you're writing a social media post, if you are making a video on YouTube, whether you're making a video on TikTok, if let's suppose our news channels are hosting people that speak on climate change, it's about all of that. We're talking about media in general because it acts as a medium in connecting information from the source to the receiver. So we need to expand our understanding of media from just traditional media and utilize that effectively. So what role does media play? The media in developing countries is obviously key to improving public's understanding of climate change, climate literacy. There were specific efforts by former president of the United States, Al Gore. He made particular efforts in order to improve climate literacy. And this kind of allows you to think how important it is that an executive of a state is deciding that we need to work more and more towards climate awareness. And similarly, when it comes to that's a developed nation we're talking about. United States of America is a developed nation. It's not facing as much impact as we are, but they're working towards it. Why not us? So we need to work more and more towards increasing climate literacy through media. A 2021 survey that was conducted by UNDP, IMO, and Ministry of Climate Change, they surveyed and they were able to find that 43% of people that are digitally connected are better able to understand climate change and have higher awareness versus 10% that do not have digital access. So obviously with digital media, with access to mobile phones and laptops and internet, we have, let's take the example of the Israel-Palestine conflict. We are better able to comprehend the situation on ground and decipher whether what is happening is right or it is wrong, right? So we're able to better understand because we have access to digital media, we have access to mobile phones, we get notifications from an app. Let's suppose we download a Geo News app or AirY app or any other BBC or CNN, whatever. We're able to get notifications about the current situation on ground and then decipher what is happening. Similarly, not just that, Instagram, you are now seeing pictures from the conflict zone, you're now seeing videos from the conflict zone. Similarly, apply this to climate literacy. Even if the traditional media speaks about it and we are, we just don't care about it and we don't talk about it on, let's say, social media, TikTok, etc. The impact of this kind of information is not going to be the same. The reason is when I say so is because, okay, I'll let this be for now, because once we move forward, you'll be better able to understand what I mean by this. But to stress here once again is that it's not just the responsibility of the traditional media to write and speak about climate change. It's also the responsibility of young people and, not just young people, everyone, children, youth, whoever has access to a mobile phone and can write and has a social media page and Instagram and Facebook, etc. They should have the ability to write their mind into words and, allow connecting scientific, technical information into less jargonized words, making it less complex for laymen to understand the concept of climate change. It's now our responsibility. It's now your responsibility to do that. So this is where digital access comes into play. Moving forward, you'll better understand why I'm focusing more on these, non-traditional forms. But for now, climate coverage in Pakistan obviously is very low because there's a low viewer interest. And this is exactly why I say digital media, this mobile phone and Instagram and stuff is very important. Non-traditional media is very important because people are always scrolling and they're always on their phone. So even if it's for a split second, they're able to see a post about climate change, it's good for us because we are giving them that piece of information instead of them not getting that information from anywhere. So it's good for them. Similarly, why I'm focusing on non-traditional media compared to traditional media, because when you talk about corporate media or you talk about these large, giant media channels and stuff, they focus on sensationalism. And when I mentioned Danani, that was a viral video. And it was it gave these media channels an opportunity to attract higher TRPs, higher viewership about, for that particular incident, because that thing went viral. So they were trying to utilize that sensationalism and get more and more views, get more and more viewership. So this is one thing why I'm saying we should not focus on specifically on traditional media, but also on the non-traditional media, because the traditional media utilizes sensationalism to drive a subject, even if it's a political issue. Our focus was specifically on the time when Imran Khan was not in jail before that, when he would do a dharna or a rally or something of that sort, and the statements that he would pass or other politicians would pass against him, those statements were just sensationalized to a point where our society became entirely polarized. So they focus on such kind of subjects which people are really interested in. They're like, oh yeah, I want to write about this, I want to post about this on my story and stuff like that. Instead of focusing on that, let's focus on something that's actually important. When we talk about traditional media specifically, and writing and media in general, there are a lot of challenges that there are to writers and journalists and even lay people that might be writing about climate change. So the challenges are limited media focus. Obviously, when you have media giants that are focusing on other subjects, you naturally kind of shift towards that narrative as well, because you are like, they're getting the most viewership. Those are the subjects that people want to listen about. So why not I just contribute to this as well? I'm going to talk about this as well, because that way my page is going to get more following. As a nation, I mean, it's kind of ironic as well. We did not talk about the implications of Indus Water Treaty being suspended unilaterally by India. We did not talk about the climate-related implications that it is going to have, or the social implications that it is going to have. Instead, we were posting memes and we were posting jokes. It's good to a certain extent, but then what happened was that because people were so focused on memes and jokes, that you started seeing memes and jokes on your traditional media as well. So it kind of they synergized in this behavior. We need to be a little bit more serious about subjects that are actually important and that requires the right kind of coverage. So when there is limited media focus, obviously people, let's suppose social media, people that have social media pages, writers, they would also prioritize that those subjects that are being spoken about on mainstream media to attract the similar viewership, and they would give their opinions on it. Similarly, another thing is disaster-centric and episodic reporting. This is very important for us to understand, because even us as, let's suppose me, I do not have mainstream media footprint, but I do have digital media footprint. I would not, I mean, relatively I do, but even at certain times as an advocate, I do find myself doing episodic reporting about disasters. Let's suppose the flood situation that happened with a family from Daska. They were drowned in the flood rally. I found myself reporting about it, but I did not find myself reporting about the glacial melting and all of that. And that made this thing click in my mind that I should talk about this at large as to what caused this issue, right? Our lack of understanding of how significant it is, how I'd say negative consequences such kind of behavior has on us as people, that we in month of monsoon are sitting in the middle of a dry river and then seeing water flowing towards us and not utilizing that time to evacuate immediately, but stand in the middle and be like, oh yeah, this is just going to pass. And then I'm not saying they did that, but just saying how important it is for us to understand these behaviors, human behaviors, us as a nation, our behavior towards the subject. Similarly, even after that, there was a report on Geo News where tourists came to Swat and other regions nearby it, And they were very angry over the fact that why was I don't remember the number of the section, but a section was imposed at that time that nobody is allowed to go on boats and into the river or swim in the river because there's a risk of flooding. And they were actually angry about it. So you do not care about your life because you do not understand how important the situation is. They do care about their life. It's not that they don't, but it's the reason why they, in that moment where like they don't care about their life, it's because they don't even know how important and how significant the situation is and what kind of consequences it can have on us. So this is where episodic reporting and more thematic reporting comes into play. So instead of just reporting on an episode, kind of report on the theme, which is climate change at large, and write about it in simpler terms that this is a season where there's heat waves across Pakistan. We have increased temperatures and the glaciers are melting. There's chances of glacial lake outburst floods. Similarly, the same water is now coming towards our rivers, and there are high chances of flooding in our cities as well. So this is something we need to talk about, and then utilize that example of that disaster that happened to explain it to people in a particular context so that it can be more easily comprehensible by them. Similarly, so again, as mentioned, investigative journalism, again, we have to focus on the disaster. We do not write, we just write about this many people died, this happened, and that's it. We don't write about the issue at large, climate change at large. We do not write about how the flood rally started, when did we see the water melting, what should we do, what kind of early warning systems can we have in place for people to, for people to prevent these disasters or prevent them losing their lives or their livelihoods in those disasters. So we do not have that, unfortunately, to a very small scale. Similarly, you have gatekeepers everywhere. Influencers, social media influencers, media editors, and producers. They act as gatekeepers. So we have to, desensitize these people so that they cannot filter out information that is important just on the basis of the fact that this is not sensational. We need to desensitize them. We need to give them training. We need to give them awareness. We need to improve their climate literacy so that they can then improve the literacy and awareness of the public at large. And media, again, is important because one broadcast can reach to a larger number of people. We see 7 million, 10 million, 13 million views on TikTok and Instagram and on posts like such. So the same thing is happening in Pakistan as well. There are millions and millions of people watching such broadcasts. So we need to have more and more focus on important subjects, as well as social media broadcasting as well. We need to have that our focus should be on important subjects so that people can get awareness and effective awareness, timely and effective awareness. Other challenges also include corporate influence. So when I talked about why it is important that we need to focus more on non-traditional forms of media instead of traditional forms of media, because we're talking about corporations that are funding advertisements and then in turn have an influence on this corporate media, right? So advertising and corporate interests are, let's suppose, I'd give you the example of Levi. Yeah, Levi is a jeans producer. They actually create Western clothing. And in Bangladesh, jeans are produced a lot, but it has the water that is discharged from the facilities where these jeans are made, the dye and everything. It has significant harmful effects on our environment as well as our society. But what they're going to do is that reports that kind of put light or focus on such issues, then they're going to censor that, right? And because they provide advertisements to corporate media, they are going to they're going to be like, if you are not speaking about the if you're not self-censoring yourself and you're not halting the reporting on such issues, we will obviously be pulling out our advertisements. Then the next is barriers to scientific data. This is also important to our larger reporting, not just on traditional media, but also on non-traditional forms of media. That scientists and experts, they kind of hold this data close to their heart, and they're not very willing to share it with people. We also find it kind of becomes difficult for journalists to have access to research, academic research, because they are paid and they do not have the funds to buy that paid subscription so that they can improve their their piece that they're writing, or the piece that they might be speaking about on a particular channel. So they do not have access to scientific data. And I think we need to bridge this gap between scientists and experts and those that are writing about it, be it journalists or be it just social media writers, whoever it is, from small scale to large scale, everyone, they should have more and more access to such kind of information, because we're not trying to cash on this issue. We should have a more humanly focus on it, that this is a larger problem, and as a society we need to focus on it in a positive, in a constructive manner, not that I'm filling my pocket with more and more money. We should not focus on it like that. The communication gap, as I mentioned, it also includes technical jargon. So what happens is that if, let's suppose I say compliance carbon markets, so everyone is going to be like, what is she talking about? I don't understand what is a compliance carbon market. So I need to make it simpler for them to understand it. If I say the GLOF, I say use the word GLOF, so everyone is like, what's GLOF? Or I say discos. So discos is basically distribution companies, your electricity distribution companies, IPPs, and all of these words. If I use these words in maybe a seminar or a webinar or any such setting, or maybe in my writing or in my research, people will have a slight bit of difficulty in understanding that. So as writers, as people that are actively working on writing on scientific writing, be it scientific writing or other forms of writing, we should focus on making these technical jargons more comprehensible for the larger public. Similarly, there's also low climate literacy among our policymakers, among our community leaders, religious leaders, and that kind of impedes the development of strong climate communication and advocacy. Therefore, it is imperative that we start training these people more and more so that they have larger awareness, and the groups for whom they are, the mentors, they act as mentors for them. Let's suppose a political party and a political leader, that political leader is the mentor of its, I would say, the people that are working under them, or its party members and stuff like that, or workers as well. So they then act as a leader for them, and they can shape their narratives on a particular issue as well. So we need more and more leaders, people in position of leadership, to utilize, or for them to be trained so that they can utilize their knowledge and then make other people under them aware about this issue. So the way forward, I've been talking about the way forward, but just let's summarize it up. We need to acknowledge Pakistan's climate vulnerability, not just on social media, but also on our traditional media as well. But yes, social media kind of prevents you from self-censorship because you're not reliant on advertisements. You do not need advertisements. Yes, you do need advertisements. Like in order to monetize yourself, you would require advertisements on YouTube and stuff, but the censorship is not that large. It's very minimal. Specifically for climate change, it's not it does not impede our work or our writing. Another consistent in-depth coverage, not just focus on the disaster, not just focus on the issue. Let's suppose a flood rally that killed 8 people or 9 people of a family. Instead of just quoting numbers or focusing on that issue, talk about the issue at large, talk about it in a more broader framework so that people can understand why 8 people or 9 people had to die because of a flood rally. So we need to understand. A more nuanced reporting is important. Utilizing also in such kind of reporting, we need to utilize storytelling. And I'll give you an example of a very, I'd say she's an inspiration for me because she's quite young. She's a 13 years old founder of a platform called Earth Warriors. It's a website that provides education for young people. Her footprint is mostly in northern areas like Nalta, GB, and all of that. But obviously she's very young for her age, and the amount of climate awareness that she as a single person has been able to propagate is really inspirational. So such kind of things. And the platform, what does it do? The platform basically has stories, very cute stories. I have the copy on me, but I'll send a picture to you guys. First, I'll send you the picture on email, and you can share it with them, and they can also access it on internet. What they do is they make stories, and through those stories, like just bedtime stories that we have about Hansel and Gretel and Rapunzel and Cinderella and those kind of stories, where she adds the idea of climate change at the center and revolves the story around it, so that young people can be more they can have a better understanding of the issue. Okay, yeah. Similarly, so this storytelling narrative, I also give you another example though. I hail from a region in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa called Nowshera, and in 2010 our house was flooded. When I realized the fact how much of a difference I can make by connecting what I am saying with the story that I have lived on platforms. Let's suppose when we were in COP29, we were at the Dutch embassy, and there were Dutch ministers and stuff, and we were basically advocating this thing to them that the global north has to speak for us. And by adding that as a hook, my story as a hook in the beginning of my speech or stuff, they were better able to understand what I'm saying, and they were able to put things into a particular perspective, and of obviously someone coming from global south. So it kind of allowed me to understand how storytelling and how creative ways like maybe pictures or art can help us understand climate change better. So it's not just reporting, it's not just writing, it's not just academic papers. There are other ways to go about it as well. So these are things that we need to utilize. And there's less and less self-censorship as well as censorship, because we do not rely on anyone to propagate that information to the mass public. Then collaborative journalism and writing, media outlets should not work separately. They should collaborate. Even let's suppose people on social media, influencers, let's call them influencers for now. I'll give you an example. Climate Forward Pakistan should collaborate with Scientia magazine and other platforms like Dastak, Baithak, PCF, and all of these different organizations that are working towards climate empowerment and awareness. They should collaborate together to create a larger impact, right? Because as a single organization, our impact would not be the same as when we work in a larger cohort of 3-4 organizations. So it would obviously be multiplied, and multiplied 4/4 or like a lot. So I cannot even quote it in numbers how much we can impact the public at large if we work collaboratively. And these are non-traditional settings. Obviously, these are sort of informal groups that we can form and then create a strategy and then move forward from there. Then partnerships, again, for capacity building. NGOs should partner with NGO, civil society, and all of these should partner with media platforms, with organizations that have a media footprint, and should provide training. Let's take the example of WaterAid. WaterAid provides proper training for journalists and people that want to work in media. They are providing not just traditional media. When I say media, I've said this before, when I say media, I'm talking about both. So people they want to maybe create a social media page and stuff like that. They provide them training on WASH issues. WASH is basically water and sanitation related issues. Basically, they provide them training on that. Similarly, there are other organizations that provides training on UNDP provides training on gloves and early warning systems. There are many other. Pakistan Red Crescent Society provides training on disaster risk reduction and management. So all of these issues, these are the things that we need to give, that we need to utilize in order to increase our capacity and then make other people aware in a layman term. And I'd say, with less jargon simplified language and writing in a simplistic manner with simplistic tone and language, I think then we can create a larger pool of population, or our populace can be more and more aware about the issues at large and contribute to it effectively as well. Other than that, connect climate to everyday issues. As I said, washing your car, washing dishes, riding let's suppose someone rides a car. What they can do is that they understanding that 4 people driving 4 separate cars are going to cause more pollution. So why not 4 people hop into one car and utilize carpooling and reduce the emissions that they're causing because of utilizing separate cars. Similarly, many other issues. Instead of using a styrofoam cup, use a paper cup. Instead of using a plastic bag, get a reusable bag. Even for women, I mean, I don't know how many women we have over here, but this is kind of a taboo. So I'm sorry if it is a taboo actually for someone, but even women that are menstruating, they, instead of utilizing sanitary pads, they should utilize reusable pads. They should utilize garments that can be used in a reusable manner. So these are everyday things that we do that contributes to environmental damage and climate change at large. So we need to connect that. We need to help people understand this, that these are the ways we can go about in order to reduce the impacts of climate change on us as a society. Then combine coverage of climate challenges with stories, as I mentioned already, highlighting solutions and positive actions. Instead of just focusing on the issue, focus on solutions that we can also utilize to motivate other people as well, so that they can contribute to it on their end too. And we go from a micro level to a macro level impact through that. Clarify climate versus local factors. We must help our people understand the difference between climate change impacts and local governance. The infrastructures that we have in place. Let's suppose when we talk about urban flooding or flash flooding within cities, it largely comes about because of clogged drains and stuff. So we need to help we need to connect that with the local factors or the local issues that we have, so that information can be taken to those local authorities, or let's suppose municipal authorities and the people that are the executives that are over there. They can understand that subject, and then they can contribute to resolving this issue, so that we can have less and less problems like flash flooding and etc. etc. So these kind of and creating effective responses and targeted solutions towards those issues. Then we should also, as I mentioned before, leverage visual and creative storytelling. So art, songs, movies. I'll take the example of David Attenborough. He created movies on issues, environmental issues and stuff, and the viewers, obviously, of those movies were better able to understand, or they have more knowledge than those that have maybe not watched such kind of movies and films and stuff. They do not have as much information or as much awareness as those that have watched such kind of films. So we need to create these films and this kind of media, creative media, to have a larger level of climate literacy within Pakistan. Coming to the I did take a bit of time, sorry for that, but coming to the conclusion, we need effective strategies in place, not only among young people, but also among the larger population in Pakistan, and also globally as well. We need to utilize media and channels that can propagate information to speak more and more about climate change, so that the implications of climate change on, let's suppose, health, economy, education, justice, and all of that can also be brought to light, and we're better able to make people understand It's not just about the heat waves, or it's not just about, hotter summers. It's about the health issues. It's also about the economic issues. It's also about the larger women-related issues and all of that. So these are the solutions that we can use to drive more climate literate population, and that in turn can then impact our decision making. So we create an impact from the bottom up. So then that bottom can influence your policymakers, the highest stakeholders, to take the right decisions, to take the right steps, so that we as a society can have a better and a more safer livelihood. So this is all about climate literacy and the impact of writers and media in climate literacy. Thank you for your attention. And once again, I'm really sorry for taking so much time, but thank you for your attention, and I hope you guys enjoyed. And if there are any questions, please go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you, Fizza, for such a comprehensive and insightful talk. Especially, it is very important to realize the urgency we have, and also you talked about the correlation with media and how important for us it is to write and talk about it, especially since we are having this word about writers. So it was really, as you mentioned about your experience at COP29, especially it is I think it is immensely important to listen to someone who has advocated climate for quite a while, and coming from their own personal experiences as well as experiential things. Okay, so we are quite near to our time, but still climate is one of the very important topics. So we would really love to have questions, and Fizza is ready to answer, so you guys can come up with your questions. Yes, please, Sanjeev.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for recognizing me. So, I was recently watching an interview with David Suzuki in which he stated that, quote, "It is too late, and what we've got to do now is to hunker down," unquote. So, Fizza, since you're an environmentalist, I would like to ask you that given that we've already closed 7 out of the 9 planetary boundaries, do you think that there's still hope for reversing the damage? Or is it time that we start working towards adapting to the inevitable, such as building coastal walls and underground bunkers? So, what do you think about this?
All right. I understand where this doomist kind of perspective comes from, and though we really appreciate the quote and your understanding of the issues that we're facing. The problem is, it's not the time to be doomist. It's not the time to think that the world is ending anyway. Let's just end it with all the fun that we're doing. No, that's not the way to go about it. Let's take the example of, as I've mentioned throughout my presentation, let's take the example of floods. Yeah, the glaciers are melting. You cannot do anything. You cannot reduce the temperature by in a day or two or a month or so, right? But what you can do is be aware of the consequences that this glacial melting can have on societies at large, and be prepared to navigate. Let's suppose a catastrophe is to come over you. You should be able to navigate it. Instead of, like, as I mentioned, you spoke about coastal beds, right? It's not just about coastal beds or coastal walls. It's about the right kind of decisions that can save us in the time of catastrophe as well. Adaptive measures, yes, but climate literacy in itself is also an adaptive measure, because the moment you make the larger population aware of the issue that we have at hand, they will start taking concrete steps towards reducing it. We might not be able to prevent certain catastrophes. We might not be able to prevent certain climate change related events, maybe in the future, the coming months or the coming years. But what we can do is that we can start working towards it step by step. It's not too late. It's not late. Still, the clock is ticking, but it's still not late. We can effectively navigate these issues. I'll give you another example. There's a community in Africa. I'm not exactly sure about I know it was in North Korea. There was a research that happened in North Korea. There was a community that was living in a particular area, and a lot of trees were cut down in that area, and they were facing heavy winds. And I'll connect that with Pakistan as well in a moment. So they were kind of facing a lot of heavy winds and storms, and they realized that this was not something that happened a few years back. So what could be the reason? Is it climate change, or is this something else? And then some of the people that were working on ground, climate-related activists and researchers that were working on ground, they realized from the pictures of the older times, they realized that there were a lot of trees in the background. So trees were acting as a natural barrier to those heavy winds. Put that into context in Islamabad and Rawalpindi. Islamabad and Rawalpindi has been urbanized to an extent through real estate, such a larger level of deforestation and logging, that we do not have that natural barrier to wind. And we witnessed that a few months back within Islamabad and Rawalpindi. Heavy winds, even in Lahore, we saw such I'd say destructive winds that we've never seen before. I, in my lifetime, have not seen such kind of winds before. So why has it happened? It's because that natural barrier is not there. If you create that natural barrier, maybe in the coming months, it might not act as effectively, but as we move forward, it will. So we need to bring not only natural solutions to it, nature-based solutions to it, but also solutions on a small scale. We take the example of groundwater depleting. In Rawalpindi, Islamabad, as well as in a lot of other regions, groundwater has depleted to a massive level. What do you do? Do you just go with it and be like, it's already depleted, what can I do to it? No, you have to work towards it. You cannot, just start moving along the destructive channel like other people. You have to, first off, stop depleting it further, or stop the actions that you think are causing the depletion. This was washing our cars, or using excess water in washing dishes, or using excess water in washing clothes. You need to stop those acts, or those practices, and then simultaneously, though not then, simultaneously make people aware of these implications, so that in a few years we can have a better environment, a better climate. I'll also give you another example though. This is very interesting because this made my interest peak a bit. In Denmark, there is this policy, or you say not policy, this practice, general practice, and it was propagated by the youth, that they do not use cars. If they're traveling over a long distance, sure, but in the city, they do not use cars. They use cycles. They use bicycles, right? Bicycles or tricycles and things like that, or they walk by foot. They have a large pond-like lake, and what they do is they pump water from the bottom of the lake, which is cold, right, in summers, and they use that for cooling the buildings. So they do not use air conditioners. They're not polluting their environment further with the CFCs and HCFCs, CFCs and stuff like the chlorofluorocarbons and all of that. They're not further polluting their environment. What they're doing is that they're utilizing already existing natural resources to, reduce these destructive practices. So these are examples that we can utilize. It will, again, as I've mentioned it again and again, it might not have the implication in a short run, but it will have its implication in the long run, and we all are going to see that, inshallah.
Okay. So any other question? Yes, please, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much. That was an amazing session. My question was about you mentioning earlier how we should focus on more than we focus on specific incidents. So don't you think that mentioning specific incidents will sort of evoke a sympathetic feeling and be better than the thematic concern?
So when I mentioned episodic framing, what I meant was that we should not just focus on the disaster itself, right? The disaster itself would mean that we're writing about the numbers, and we're just making people be like, oh, they should not have died, or this is happening, or the government response was very negligent. So this is the kind of thoughts that it will evoke. What you should do instead is that you talk about our disaster, yes, but you connect our disaster with the root cause of it. What is the root cause? It's climate change. what is causing that? Climate change is causing glacial melts, and then that is causing all of these floods in Pakistan, obviously the northern regions and the central region of Pakistan. So you should not just focus on the disaster itself, or the numbers, or sensationalizing, or the statements that come from the political leaders. You should talk about the issue at large so that people are able to better understand what this issue is, how did it came about to happen, what was the root cause of it, and what can we do in order to prevent such kind of things in the future. So this is what I meant.
Okay, so a call to action, basically.
A call to action, yes. But utilize that event. As I mentioned my own story, I did utilize that disaster that happened in my life. But what it was, the purpose it was for, was to advocate to the global north that your actions have resulted, or your historical emissions have resulted in my livelihood being destroyed. You need to take responsibility for it, and you need to sit and advocate for us as well. Utilize that event. Do not let that go. Talk about it, but utilize it in a smart manner so that people are able to comprehend the issue at large.
Okay. Well, the discussion has been quite interesting, and the Q&A session as well. As since if there is any one question, we can always take. Otherwise, we are quite past the time. Okay. Well, obviously, thank you, Fizza. Thank you for your time, especially for all the writers who want to take upon climate change as a project incoming at the end of forward, and who want to write about it. They can also they can talk to Fizza through via LinkedIn, and you guys can ask her questions, and she would be really happy to help. And this has been quite an amazing session in this regard, and we have tried to activate quite much of the people over here. And thank you, Fizza. I would like we will reconnect again, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. It was really amazing speaking to such, I'd say such a diverse cohort that you have over here. So I'm really grateful for Scientia Magazine for this opportunity as well, and for hosting these young people and all of the people from various parts of our country at this platform. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye.